Good morning, Mayor Benji Magalong. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us.
Good morning, Richard, and thank you for having me today.
I know things have been quite tough in Baguio and the northern regions of the country over the past week or so. I was just in the town over the weekend, very shortly, and I just saw how difficult the situation is. I think a lot of family members they had to stay in the dark, and mukhang the typhoon this year was quite scary, based on the stories and anecdotes I got from my family members. So I appreciate Mayor for making time here. And is there any update about the situation there in Baguio in terms of reconstruction, dealing with the situation there?
We got hit, relatively we got hit, and we have about 2,700 evacuees. Talagang we have about 32 cases na talagang down yung mga electric posts. It took us some time for us to recover, especially our electricity. But as of Sunday, last Sunday, we're 89%, and then 2 days ago, we're almost 100%, except 100% for all the barangays, except for some residential areas. We have about 168 as of latest count. The number of trees that fell during the typhoon. We still have about 68 trees that need to be cut because ito naman na yung nandun sa mga residential. Kaya kanina nag-inspect naman ako. We have some soil erosions, we have landslides. That's the reason why today we're going to declare a state of calamity so that we can access our quick response fund para naman ma-repair kagad itong mga damages na nangyari ngayon. But nonetheless, overall, we're recovering fast. We're very resilient in the city of Baguio, and we're getting back things back to normal. That's actually our intention. As soon as possible, we have to get back to normalcy.
It's good to hear that, Mayor. Was this year's typhoon particularly harder than before, tougher than before?
Hindi naman, mas malakas pa na ibang typhoon in terms of rainfall. Pero ito kasi matindi yung hangin.
Yeah.
Probably one of the strongest typhoon in terms of wind velocity.
Yeah, I think it's the wind velocity that was quite scary for a lot of people, especially those who haven't experienced it for quite some time. Just my ate was just telling me, "Ay nakakatakot sa gabi." So I was wondering perhaps the wind, the gush, was a little bit stronger than usual. I think President Marcos Jr. also was in the northern regions of the country right after returning from Malaysia. So we had, I think, the commander-in-chief also trying to be there for the people and showing support. And we see this trend since last year, right? Since he took charge, and also under former DSWD Secretary Erwin Tulfo, whom we also interviewed last year. It seems that we have a government right now who wants to immediately show that they're going to be on the ground, they're going to show up. What's your take on that, Mayor?
Yeah, they're very responsive. I was really amazed. Alam mo, si Presidente pumunta sa Northern Luzon. Si Speaker Martin Romualdez came over. At ang bilis din ng kanilang suporta sa amin. They provided financial assistance to the victims, pati na rin yung mga ayuda food packs. We're getting a lot of help from the SWD under Secretary Gatchalian. May mga senators din na nagpadala ng tulong dito, like Senator Robin Padilla. Kaya patao si Senator Lapid, nagpapadala rin ng para pantulong din dito. And we're getting a lot of help, even from the private sectors, Lions Club, Rotary Clubs. Ang daming tulong na dumarating sa amin. Kaya nakakatuwa talaga yung bayanihan spirit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is something quite interesting in the Philippines. Nakikita natin na itong rapid action response style of governance is becoming the norm, And I think whoever becomes the Filipino president for the foreseeable future, they're gonna think about, the hashtag nasaan si Pangulo, nasaan si Presidente. So I think that has put some sort of positive pressure, on whoever is the president to be as responsive as possible, and I appreciate that. Now, Mayor, obviously the context of our conversation is, you have made some waves recently, but obviously I'm not talking to you just because you have made waves. We have had many conversations off the record, on the record throughout the years. I'm personally glad that your calls for good governance, that your narrative of good governance, that your advocacies, yung mga adhikain niyo po, is getting more and more traction. And along those lines, of course, I'm glad to see that, Mayor, you're making an effort to translate this, this media traction, national discourse into actual movement, right? So
Yeah.
before the end of this month, you're going to be one of the co-conveners, along with other mayors, including mayor of the other city when I reside, Mayor Joy Belmonte, of a new movement. Can you tell us a little bit more about this? How did this come about? Did this have to do anything with our conversation before? What you working with Vico and
Yes.
other mayors? I want to take credit. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead, Mayor. Yeah.
Alam mo, nakakagulat din na yung ang bilis ng pangyayari na ito. Ano?
Yeah,
Nobody
exactly.
expected it. In fact, I was just invited to speak in Camp Crame, and for some reason, someone posted it in social media. Wala naman akong dalang social media. I was just with my driver, security, and myself attending it in a very low Innova vehicle, low key. But ito na, nag-umpisa na. So I sought the help of, alam mo, si Harvey K. and Winona of Kaya Natin. Silang tumutulong sa akin ngayon. And alam mo, very, very broad kasi yung kanilang network. And the first intent there is to gain traction, to sustain it. Nagkaroon ng traction, pero yung pinaka-challenging dyan is how to sustain it. And so during our conversation, nagkaroon kami ng focus group discussion, and also we invited some other local mayors who were members of who are also former classmates in leadership and governance. At nagbigay kami ng kuro-kuro, suggestions, and then finally we decided na ano kaya kung umpisan muna natin sa Mayors for Good Governance na movement. And so, sabi ko nga sa kanila, alam nyo, yung aking good governance is good governance beyond politics. But now, what I did was to transform it. 2 months ago, sabi ko, ano kaya kung gawin na natin, wala pa yung masyadong controversy, pero sabi ko, ano kaya kung gawin na nating good governance, good governance, get involved na. It's already a call to action.
Bumper sticker na siya, literally.
Yeah, so with that, we decided to, move things up, really, mobilize, and amazing din yung reaction ng mga mayors immediately. Nagkaroon ng 36 mayors, then we're now at 58 mayors and counting. Meron din mga vice governors na gusto rin sumali. May mga governors din nagpapasabi sa akin. And we're getting a lot of support coming from former high government officials who were in previous administrations. Talagang ang daming tumutulong and they want to sustain it. Ang problema lang is, alam mo, ang nakikita ko lang is it's personality based. Parang Magalong, merong kasing nag-i-spin Magalong for ganito, for senator, for... Sabi ko, pwede ba itabi nyo na, tanggalin nyo na yung Magalong yan. Dapat focus na tayo dun sa movement. Focus na tayo sa movement. So, sana it will now become ang focus dyan is good governance na sana. And that's the reason why during our discussion, kailangan pala gumawa kami ng isang parang umbrella organization like Filipinos for Good Governance. Isa yon sa mga discussion na napag-usapan namin. And then under this are the Mayors for Good Governance, Youth for Good Governance, Women's for Good Governance, Businessmen for Good Governance, and hopefully talagang maging malaking movement. And with that, siguro we can ensure sustainability. Yun ang pinaka-major concern namin how to sustain it.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a lot of positive response when I posted about this immediately on Twitter, and I was very happy about it. You had former very high-level officials, very progressive people. I mean, you can guess who are these people, who liked it, who shared it. So many were saying, bakit mayors lang, dapat governors, vice governors. So I'm glad that you clarified that yun lang yung tagline, but actually this goes well beyond it. And it's as inclusive as possible, right? So itong mga 58 mayors that we're discussing are from all across the country, I suppose. And
yes,
mga conveners lang nakikita namin.
Kung makikita mo yung unang mga nag-react, many of them are from the Visayas, from Mindanao, at dito sa Luzon. Mas nauna pa ngayon, reaction kagad sa Visayas at sa Mindanao nung sumali sila. Si Mayor Belmonte, nung in-approach namin si Mayor Joy, immediately sabi niya, I'm going to join you.
Yes, of course.
We're getting a lot of support coming from the other government officials. Kaya nakakatuwa talaga. It's becoming a lot of encouragement, a lot of motivation. It's amazing.
Mayor, is there gonna be a list of the mayor that is gonna come out or something? Kasi dun sa na-share lang namin, mga conveners lang nandun eh. So,
Yeah, marami. In fact, yes, there's a manifesto. We created a manifesto. We crafted a manifesto and we gave it out. Maraming pumirma doon sa mga manifesto na yun eh. Manifesto ng we spelled out ano yung mga good governance principles doon. And a lot of them really sign fix their signature on that manifesto. So malamang dadami pa eh. But we're looking at about 1,600 yan.
yes.
But as I said, we can start with ang total number of local chief executives, siyempre, mayors,
right,
and provincial governors, about 1,600 plus yan. So we're talking about 58 mayors out of the 1,400 plus na mayors. So we're starting, relatively small, pero small things, big things starts with small things.
Yes, and Mayor, of course, someone wouldn't mind it to start a bit small because, as you said, talamak ang corruption, which is something we're going to discuss. And some are wondering, I mean, if so many people join, then what is the selection process? Was it not my selection? What's the screening process? Because mamaya naman baka yung mga questionable personalities come and join along, and that's just gonna raise eyebrows, right? I mean, do you have some sort of general understanding who you're comfortable with to be part of this? I know you want to be as inclusive as possible, but there should be some sort of benchmarking, right?
We understand your concern.
I want to be nice also, yeah, but yeah.
But sa akin naman yung assumption ko is, people change. People change. There's always something good in people. Siguro, hopefully, ma-realize na rin nila na it's about time na I need to change my behavior and join the movement. Kaya, hindi rin kami namimili. We're expecting that. We're expecting na may mga tao na kumbaga parang they will exploit it to probably promote their own personal interest. But as I've said, this is voluntary. For the meantime, ayaw muna namin nag-i-screen kami. Pangit naman na nag-i-screen tayo. As I've said, there's always something good in people.
No cancel call. Ay, hindi ka pwede para medyo alanganin ka. Or, ma'am, sorry ma'am, hindi ka pwede kasi, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Which brings us to this discussion because, of course, you're an MUP yourself, so we can discuss about the pension reform shortly. But in the context of the pension reform discussion, you mentioned the fact that corruption is a big problem. Talamak ang corruption, systemic ito. We know from government, officials themselves saying that at least this is 2019 pa, pre-pandemic na up to 700 billion pesos ang nawawala bawat taon dahil sa corruption. So imagine how much money you can save. And shortly we'll talk about the MUP pension reform because the idea is from 250 billion, ito umabot ng trillion. So I can understand as someone who's a pensioner and who's willing to help the country, you're also thinking about other ways to help fiscal sustainability. But before we go to the pension issue, ay medyo mahabang usapan niya. Pag-usapan natin itong issue ng corruption, Mayor, because you gave kind of the blueprint of how things work, and I appreciate that because you emphasize na it's not a moral issue. It's not about Mayor X being a horrible person, therefore doing this, and then Mayor, it's not a good or evil moral politic issue. It's just a practice. It's an institutionalized problematic practice and something has to be done about it. That you're not here to name names, you're here to point out bad practices, and that something has to be done about it. Can you tell me more about from your understanding on the ground, how does this corruption situation work? I mean, we know it as citizens because we see it, but it's another thing if a mayor is pointing that out.
Okay, mabuti na tanong mo. Alam mo, Richard, when I started as mayor in 2019, I received a lot of advice from political leaders, and at the same time from businessmen. Mayor, ito yung tatanggapin mo pag sa project, it's mga 5%, 7%, 10%, 15%, depende yan sa amount. Yan yung mga sa project infrastructure. Some other personalities go as high as 40%, 35%. Pero para maging matino ka, napakabait na mayor, okay na yung 10%, 15% kasi mabait ka mayor, mga ganun. No? And at the same time, for supplies, alam mo, Mayor, ito yung advice namin sa iyo. Siguro mag-umpisa ka lang sa 10%, 15%. Sa medicine, pwedeng 25%. Masarap pakinggan. Laki pala ng pera rito. Iisip mo, no? Tapos, pag nakahingi ka sa taas, ito naman yung mga entitled mo. You can charge the 30% na. Ibig sabihin, may isang project, tapos may nakapili kang mismong contractor. Yung contractor na yan, let's say it's a 1 million project, at you impose 30%, ibig sabihin yan, kung 1 million, 30% of that is 300 million, ay 300,000 pesos. I-deliver yan sa iyo. Yan. Wala kang pipirma sa iyo yan. Pera mo na yan. Pera mo na yan. So, talagang nagulat talaga ako kung ganun ba kalaki ito. Sabi ko, no? So, what I did was, sige lang. Tuloy-tuloy lang informasyon. I was cooperating with them and hearing them out. Tapos, paano pagpili ng contractor? Ganito yan. Merong kung tayo dyan, magkakaroon ng godfather yan. Siya na yung mamibili kung sino. Sasabihin na lang niya, ito yung para sa itong project na to, para tayo, tapos hintayin mo na lang kung ibibigay niya sa iyo. Ito lang labas na, mag-state ka lang kung anong porsyento. Okay. And then I started my inspection. And during my first 3 months of inspection, I was really surprised. Out of 10, nagdala pa kami ng third party and members of the, alam mo yung civil engineers, yung association nila. And we were really surprised. Out of 10, 9 substandard, sometimes 10 substandard. Talagang napapamura ka. Napapamura ka talaga. And nakakalungkot na pag kinausap ko, let's say teachers, bago ko inspect, sasabihin ko, teachers, okay ba yung ginawang project na CR sa inyo? Sir, okay, maraming salamat. Pwede bang sumama kayo sa akin? Pagdating namin doon, ako, Diyos ko, gumawa ng CR, walang tubig. Sabi ko, bakit tayo gumawa ng CR? Kasi sir, ito yung amount eh. Tapos, yung gripo, iba-iba yung distansya ng mga gripo kasi iba-iba yung elevation pa. Tapos, pagpasok ko doon sa mismong CR, yung water closet na CR, pagbukas kong ganun, sabi ko, bakit itong lababo? Tapos binuksan ko yung gripo, natanggal yung what? Sabi ko, ano ba ito? Sabi ko, akala ko ba, this is worth 150,000. Isa talagang yan ng 150,000. So yung mga teachers, nagulat na rin. Nagulat ka na rin. Tapos sabi ko, sa galit ko, pinaghampas ko yung mga faucet. Talagang putol-putol yung mga faucet. Sabi ko, sobra na kayo talaga. Sabi ko sa kanila. So, talagang nakakalungkot na isipin na akala ng mga sabi ng mga teachers sa akin, sir, pasensya na po kayo. Kasi tuwan-tuwa lang po kami na meron. Yung pala, mali-mali pala yung pagkakagawa ko. Sabi sa akin. Sabi ko, kaya nga, kailangan natin ng community. Kailangan namin yung tulong nyo. Kayo magsasabi sa amin kung, are you satisfied? Kailangan i-open natin. So, that's the time na talagang very aggressive na ako. At talagang naging ako passionate ako, especially in promoting quality standard projects. At every time I don't hesitate to say substandard yan o kaya that is tainted with corruption. Kasi nagtawag ako ng mga contractors. Sabi ko, what is happening? Bakit ganito? So tinabi na nila, sir, kasi pag humingi yung sa taas, lahat sa baba hihingi. So kindly give me some numbers. Sir, nagbigay sila ng computation. Sir, ito hihingi, ito hingi. Ito sir na hihingi, ito yung porsyento niya. So magkano may iwan? Sir, 42.7% to 55%. Meron pa sila, mga point pa sila eh. Ito na sir may iwan. Sabi ko, so magkano na lang kikitain mo? Sir, dapat kami sir may mga 10 to 15% o 20%. Sabihin sir natin, mga 10% na 15%. Pero anong gagawin mo kung para matin? Sir, isa substandard sir namin. Bibili sir kami ng ganitong klaseng bakal, ganitong klaseng semento. Yung aggregate sir namin, titipirin namin. Nakakalungkot isipin.
And I mean, I think some of these people forgot that you're head of investigation back in the PNP. I mean, it's like, wait lang, masyado kayong relax kay Mayor. I mean, this guy used to go after, the worst of the worst at the highest levels. Going back to this, Mayor, I mean, you also mentioned that some of the dynasties there, again, without naming names, they were also on the supply side, right? So it's not like they're only benefiting from the demand, they're also in the supply chain. So that's like double time benefiting from this.
Yun nga yun eh. May force. Kaya nga sabi ko, tiningnan ko yung mga, alam mo, I get in touch with the mga different contractors. Sila rin na nagsasabi, sir, si ganito, siya na may-ari nitong itong construction company. So makikita mo talaga na ang dami palang politiko na sila na rin, may pag-aari na rin sila construction company o kaya supplier na rin sila ng mga aggregates, na mga sila rin ang nag-ooperate ng quarry system. Sila na rin ang nagdi-deliver ng mga bakal, doon ka na rin kukuha sa kanila. Kumbaga, kung ikaw contractor, kailangan sa kanila ko kumuha ng supplies.
The integrated business model talaga, no? Conglomerate.
Yeah, so, kumbaga parang triple whammy. May porsyento ka na nga. Ikaw na yung contractor. Kasi, kung na lang, moro-moro na lang yung bidding nun eh. Tapos, ikaw pa yung supplier. Ako, Diyos ko, sabi ko, ano ba to? Sabi ko.
Mayor, I mean, obviously there are people there who literally treat politics as business. One reason why I never wanted to just moralize this, I mean, of course you have to have moral integrity given na yan. My understanding also here is that it has also to do with, expenditure during elections. I mean, in a country where there's no real political parties to raise funds for you, there's no election, funding reforms. Many would say, well, kailangan kumita yung mga officials, otherwise paano nila ma-sustain itong election campaigning nila, no? What do you have to say about that? Because I understand you're pointing out huge problems there. I'm not trying to rationalize this, but my sense is this is also systemic. Talamak ito dahil wala talaga tayong matinong infrastruktura to raise funds for elections because elections are not cheap, especially in some parts of the country. Based on your own experience, what do you have to say about this, the other side of the coin?
Okay. Actually, my first term, no, I had the chance to talk a mayor very close to me, sa mayor from Visayas. Siya nagtanong sa akin, sabi niya, Mayor Benji, sabi niya, magkano ginastos mo? Sabi ko, tama-tama, ito, 10.2 million ginastos ko. Sabi niya, 2.2 million. Ilang bang butante mo? Sabi ko, 160,000 plus, sabi ko. Pero almost ang turnout is 78%. Sabi niya, bakit 10.2? Bakit? Malaki ba? Sabi ko. Hindi. Bakit ikaw? Ilan inabot mo? 150 million eh. Sabi ko, bakit ka umabot 150 million? Ilan ba butante mo? Kalahati nung sa'yo, 80,000 lang. So bakit ganun? Kasi 1,500 na bawat butante ko eh. Iba pa yung ginastos ko during the actual election. So magkano lahat ang ginastos mo? Sabi ko sa kanya, baka sabi ko nga 150 million eh. Siyempre yung ko pa, yung relative ko pa nakasama ko sa partido, iba pa yung ginastos niya. So magkano lahat ang ginastos niyo? Umabot ng mga 200 million. Sabi ko, how do you recover that? How do you recover that? Sabi ko sa kanya. Hindi na siya umimik. So, nakakalungkot sabi ko nga sa iyo, I was really surprised. I'm amazed at the same time that ganito pala yung nangyayari rito. I never had the chance, dati-rati when I was in the Philippine National Police and I hear politicians spending 100 million, 200 million, 400 million. Sabi ko, Diyos ko, lalaki palang gastusan dito. And now that I am now with the local government unit, and finally I realized it's happening, and it's not only, it's a norm, it's not an exception. It's practically a norm. At talagang talagang you'll feel frustrated na why is this happening? And when you talk to political leaders who are involved in this kind of practice or practices, magugulat ka na lang na sabi na saan kami kukuha ng pang-suporta? everybody's expecting us na we have to give something to them. Supporters coming over every day, campaigners going to the house every day, sick people going, saan kami kukuha? Saan kami kukuha? And that also became my dilemma. When I became mayor, in fact, during my first 3 months, ang sabi sa akin ng isang kakilala kong political leader, Benji, make sure that doon sa bahay mo, meron kang lugar na dyan pupunta yung mga tao. Kasi asikasuhin mo sila, papakainin mo sila. And then sabi ko, totoo nga, no? Pumipila sila sa akin. And then finally, I realized, this has to stop. This has to stop, you know. And then every time na may pupunta na tao doon, tatawagin ko yung department head, why is this person lining up at my house? Ibig sabihin, we're not seeking them out. We are only reacting to their needs. We have to be proactive about it. And we have to, make sure that, our services are fast. Kasi yung speed, yung bilis ng delivery ng service, yan ang hinahanap ng tao. Alam mo, Richard, walang nakapila sa bahay ko ngayon. O uwi ako sa bahay, alis ako sa bahay sa umaga, walang nakapila doon sa bahay. Dahil kung mabilis ang serbisyo, responsive tayo, hinahanap natin sila kung saan tayo, hindi mangyayari yan. So that's probably one of the changes na nangyari dito sa siyudad ng Baguio.
Yeah, I mean, if you institutionalize public service, they don't personalize it, right? Like umaasa na lang sa goodwill of the leader because the institutions are working. I mean, that's how it's supposed to be in the modern 21st century governance system. I mean, Mayor, to what?
Can I add, Richard?
Please.
But for some reason, other political leaders want that kind of arrangement na araw-araw nandiyan lahat sila sa bahay niya. Kasi nakuha niya na nakakakuha siya ng assurance na tao kita. Ikaw ang butante ko, loyal ka sa akin. They like that. But they have to spend a lot. And that where do you get the money to be able to maintain all these supporters? Siyempre, alam mo na kung saan panggagalingan niya.
Yeah, kind of a Godfather style, no? You personalize it. It's like you're being essentially mafioso style, no? I appreciate this being mentioned, Mayor. To what degree, though, is your experience, I mean, aside from your exercise of moral conviction, also a reflection of the special circumstances of Baguio? I mean, you could say that Baguio is one of the most educated cities in the country. It has a relatively huge middle class. There's agency, right? And there's a hunger for good governance. And perhaps someone would say, Mayor, maybe what you're doing can be done in place like Baguio, whereby hindi mo kailangan ng en masse vote buying to have a chance. But if you go to some parts of the country, I'm sure you're also very aware of this, it's a completely different ballgame, right? I mean, you really have people just waiting for election period in order to get some sort of a sustenance. I mean, they have totally given up on institutionalized governance. It's all about vote buying, counter vote buying. We hear about double bidding, essentially. I hear it from people on the ground who know about these things. What do you have to say about that? Is Baguio an exceptional case, or is Baguio just for you a potentially good practice role model that could be replicated in other parts of the country?
Well, I just would like to start with, because you mentioned about moral conviction. Richard, I'm not a perfect person. I'm not. I know. I have my missteps. I have my mistakes. I have my flaws. Hindi ako anghel. Pero I can discern what is the truth. I can discern what is right. And I know what's good governance. I know. And that's actually my passion, to transform organization. Even when I was in the Philippine National Police, one is my passion. Every time I get a new assignment is I make sure that I leave a legacy I can pass on to the next officers who are going to take over. Ganun yun. Passion ko yan. Now, for the city of Baguio, I just would like to pride ourselves now. Baguio probably is one of the very, very, very few. And to give emphasis to that, I would say very, 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 very few places now, localities in the entire country, where vote buying never worked, never succeeded. Ganun pa rin, yung mga traditional politician, they continue to buy votes, pero they never succeeded. And kung ako, admittedly, if I run in other localities, malamang hindi ako mananalo. Swerte lang ako na tumakbo ako sa syudad ng Baguio. Now, the big question here, can we replicate it? Can we replicate it? Yeah, I believe we can replicate it. We can. We can. It's just a matter of having that strong conviction. Sometimes it gets frustrating, especially kung ang mga tao naka-line up sa'yo, katapos people are just simply waiting for you to, take out your wallet and then start giving away. But you have to change the mindset of these people. Hindi pwedeng yung very traditional na public service is always linked to politics. One way or the other, we have to break the chain that links us to that old paradigm of politics. So we're changing it. I'm challenging the status quo. Sometimes people are mad. Sometimes people are just simply saying, alam mo si Magalong, napakakuripot niyan. Napakakuripot niyan. But, we have to do it. But if they see that services are being delivered fast, quality service are being delivered, then finally there's a sudden change of mindset. Bakit tayo magagalit sa kanya? Good governance siya. Pero kita mo naman yung natatanggap natin, especially during the pandemic. Grabe yung natanggap na ipadala namin na service sa kanila lahat despite the fact na very limited yung funds namin. Pero ako naman limos naman sa taas. Doon ko na lang ino-offset, para ako namamalimos sa mga senators, sa mga party list congressman, sa mga sa mga secretaries. Talagang kailangan ko talagang makipag-establish ng network sa kanila. Otherwise, ano i-deliver ko? Kulang din naman yung revenue namin, kulang din yung budget. For example, AIX. Ang AIX namin every year 3.5 million lang, Pero nung pandemic, ilan AIX ang requirement namin? Because of the support na nakuha namin sa mga secretaries, sa mga ibang national government officials, naka-produce kami ng almost 41 million na AIX fund para sa kanila. So, talagang on the part of local government, you can do something about it. Malaki rin. Talagang kailangan lang talaga tapang din at lakas ng loob, pagiging agresibo rin para makakuha ka rin ng pondo from the national government.
That's very good that you pointed that out, Mayor, because I always say, just being clean at hindi corrupt, as commendable as that may be, is not enough, right? That's just, making sure that, you're not doing the bad things, but what people expect is also husay, competence, delivery, right? So the two have to go together, right? So
Yes.
you don't take the money, but you also deliver the services. So it's very difficult, but what you're saying is it's doable, because even during the pandemic period, with all the fiscal crunch and all sorts of lobbying going on for more funds, you were able to deliver that in Baguio.
Yeah. It takes a lot of, we have a good team. Unang-una rin naman, you have to build a winning team.
Exactly.
Importante, hindi pwede yung kukunin kita dahil supporter kita. Hindi, it's not. Kailangan talaga, you have to surround yourself with leaders. And you have to build a winning team talaga. And that winning team will work for you. Sabi nga, alam mo naman siguro, meron yung the law of inner circles. Your success would depend on the people who are near you or around you. Yun eh. If you choose, select and bring in mediocres their performance. But if you bring in competent and people with strong characters, then you can see that, you'll be able to deliver and achieve ambitious, big targets, objectives. You'll be accomplish a lot of things.
So, Mayor, essentially you're saying that it's not just the political will or charisma of the top guy or top stateswoman. It's a teamwork. It's the merit-based teamwork that you put together. Again, I appreciate it, because I think usually yan ang namimiss ng tao na, you need a good leader on top, you need a great team, and then eventually you want that to be translated into strong institutions, right? And I think the great sociologist Max Weber had a term for that: routinization of charisma, right? I mean, how do you translate your charismatic leadership into strong institutions, right? And I think this chain flow is extremely important. Bakit mahalaga yan? Because Mayor, I noticed over the past decade or so, the big debate in the Philippines is, oh, do we need a strong leader, which tends to be more authoritarian, populist, or no, we just need malinis na leader, focus on institutions. My point is, there could be a perfect mean between these two, no? Whereby you have clean governance, but also decisive leadership, authoritative leadership, not authoritarian leadership. And I'm very glad that you're mentioning that, because yun yung mga kulang sa political discourse. I mean, we discuss this as scholars, right? But even in the journalistic world, where I'm also very active, I notice these things kind of get missed in action. So I'm very glad that you're mentioning that. But of course, Mayor, my understanding is that if we want to deal with the issue of corruption in a serious way, I mean, it's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle, right? I mean, we have to deal with the whole chain, right? Election finance, funding reforms, making sure that the civil society is active, making sure that people are mobilized, put pressure on the bad guys or the not so good guys, and at the same time help good guys, people like you. Is there kind of a blueprint, a plan, more studies, more efforts to work on that? Is there like best practices from other countries that you're looking at? I know you're not doing your dissertation in good governance per se, but you're doing that effectively in your own practice, right?
Yes, there's always a saying that it should be a whole of society approach. But at the end of the day, these things are easier said than done. And that's the reason why what I do is do a lot of networking now. Consult with people who are just so passionate about good governance, who are experts on good governance. We have to listen to them, find out how do we move forward. I don't have the monopoly of all the bright ideas. I need to confer with young people because they're just so adaptive and very innovative, and they have a lot of things in mind. Find out yung kanilang dynamism, exploit their dynamism, get a lot of ideas, paano tayo mag-move, and then you meet with CSOs who are also equally passionate about good governance. So we're getting a lot of help, getting a lot of ideas. Hindi pwedeng lahat manggagaling lang sa akin at ako lang mag-iisip lahat. I cannot do that. Sabi ko nga, very limited din yung aking on how to perpetuate and at the same time create that movement. But the good news is we're getting a lot of support. Surprisingly a lot of support. Despite the fact na meron din mga, alam mo na, character assassination, dyan na nag-umpisa lahat. But surprisingly, people continue to believe in you. Nandyan yung mga text messages nila every day na, yung mga motivating messages, words of encouragement, inspiring narratives na pinapadala sa akin. So, sabi ko nga, we will keep the fire burning. We need to keep the fire burning.
So Mayor, what do you say about those people? Ito si Mayor Magalong, nagmamalinis, nagmamagaling, nagpalaing, as we put it in Ilocano. What do you have to say about that, Mayor, dun sa mga naysayers dyan? I mean, let's not name names again.
Alam mo kasi, we have a focus. Naka-focus kami rito sa good governance. These are distractions. If we attend to this, mawawala ka sa focus . So better to ignore this. Siguro, gagawa ka lang ng mga clarificatory statements, just to address yung mga maling mga lies, mga intrigues na ginagawa. But at the end of the day, these are distractions that you need to, just simply ignore them, or probably they're not considered as priority in terms of prioritization. These are not important and not urgent that you need to attend immediately to this. Pwede mo muna sang set aside, and then focus on your objectives, your goals, and that is how do we promote and advocate good governance so that this will eventually be understood by the mass. Kasi sabi ko nga, lagi ko inuulit wala tayong problema na i-explain ito sa ABC. Ang mahirap is paano natin i-explain ang good governance sa baba. I remember, alam mo, during my second term election, may pumunta sa akin na well-meaning na mga individuals, and they said that they conducted their own survey, at lumalabas, sabi nila sa akin, Mayor, technically, tie kayo At kuwan na tayo, we're almost kuwan na tayo, 1.5 months na lang naiiwan. Technically, tayo kayo, sabi niya. And isa sa mga nakikita namin reason is they don't understand this.
Yeah, medyo up in the air siguro for them. Yep.
Yes.
Supposedly.
They don't understand it, sabi sa akin. Sabi ko sa kanya, bakit? Anong balak niya? Palitan natin. Palitan natin. Kailangan pangmasa, pambaduy na tagline. No, sabi ko, no, I won't change it. I won't change it. Mayor, we have to do it. Bakit hindi ka na lang bumalik sa dati mong tagline na magaling, magalang, marangal, magalong. Sabi ko, ayaw ko nang bumalik doon. Nahihiya nga ako doon. Napakatrapo noon, sabi ko.
Gusto
Bakit
ko
ayaw mo
happy
balikan?
ka. Gusto ko happy
Bakit
ka.
ayaw sabi ko, yung ganun na binabanggit nyo na pangmasa, it doesn't have any vision. It lacks content. This has a vision. This has content. I'm going to stick to this. The following day, what I did was to come up with an announcement. Sabi ko, I believe in this line, good governance. And just to let you know how confident I am, sabi ko, with this line, if I lose by 1 vote, hindi na ako magpro-protesta.
No, I remember you mentioning how the things were a little bit anxious in certain quarters about this. No, I mean I could think of spinning it a bit as like walang politika, serbisyo lang, or something like that, right? To kind of make it more masa friendly. But then again, I mean, not to be over proud of our great city Baguio. I just feel that we're very blessed with a highly educated, highly mobilized, and very exacting electorate in Baguio City. I was just thinking how we can replicate this across the country. I'm essentially giving you unsolicited advice as a political analyst, but for me talaga yan, husay, yan talaga hinanap ng tao. We see that in the surveys. Yes, ayaw ng tao ng corruption, but even more importantly, ayaw ng tao ng walang ginagawa, no, or walang delivery of services. So husay, serbisyo, this is very, very important. Nakikita natin even in the media, no? They talk about serbisyo. Nakikita natin si Senator Raffy Tulfo, no? Si Idol Tulfo is also doing very well by focusing on the issue of serbisyo. So I see how these elements are coming together. I'm sure we can replicate that on the national level. Now, Mayor, may I push also you on this issue of the pension reform? Because a skeptic would say, okay, pensionado ito, he's trying to protect his pals, and he's trying to just distract us by focusing on the corruption issue. Of course, mahalaga yan, but we have to wait for the president to come with anti-corruption initiative. What is your stance really in terms of realistically dealing with the pension reform issue, as because Benjamin Joknar, finance secretary, has come very strong and saying we have to do something, we have to introduce certain schemes. Aside from dealing with the corruption issue, which, as you know, it's something really long-term challenge, in the short run, as we deal with this fiscal issue, ano po yung sa tingin yung best way to deal with this? Because you have your ear to the ground. You are a military uniform personnel pensioner. You understand your colleagues. You understand their needs, their problems, etc. What is your take on that, Mayor?
Okay, I just would like to be very, very objective about it. From my own personal perspective. My point naman si Secretary Job, no? My point naman siya. It's just that the way it was delivered, yung messaging, medyo masakit. Masakit sa itong mga veterans, retirees, and at the same time, sa mga active service. Parang sinasabi mo na kayo ang dahilan kung bakit magko-collapse ang ating ekonomiya.
Pabigat.
Pabigat. Parang gano'n eh. Nakakasakit. And then, one day, I received this call from Secretary Charlie Galvez. Sabi niya sa akin, Sir, kagaling ko lang kay Presidente at pinag-usapan, sir, namin itong MUT. Baka pwede kang tumulong. Kasi sabi niya, sir, sa akin, konsultahin daw kita. At para malaman din namin, sir, kung paano namin i-approach ang Philippine National Police. So what I did was immediately get in touch with the Chief PNP, Chief PNP Accord. Sabi ko, may instruction sa akin na ganito, can I meet with your local finance committee or your finance committee of PNP? So when I went there, pinakita sa akin. So ito yung mga recommendations namin. Ito, sir, yung mga actions taken na ginagawa namin. Sabi ko, regarding your recommendation, what was the basis of this? Can I see the numbers? Sabi lang, sir, wala po kaming datang. Pero ito kasi, sir, yung ginagawa namin. Sabi ko, alam mo, si President, we have to make sure that itong mga recommendations nyo should have a basis. And the basis of that should be data. No? Otherwise, hindi natin. Unang-una, what are your present needs? What are your present needs? And then what are your needs 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now? With the current trend that is going on, especially in the aspect of sustaining and supporting yung ating pension, will you be able to sustain and fulfill the needs of your future PNP? Sabi nila, sir, kailangan sir, hindi pa namin sir naabot yun. And that's the reason why we need to conduct an actuarial study, get a financial expert para ma-explain sa atin lahat yan. Otherwise, hindi. And then I showed them some figures. I wish I can mention this, but these figures are really alarming. I cannot divulge it at the moment, Richard. And it pertains to the financial status of the Philippine National Police. And when I presented this to many of the non-commissioned officers, they finally realized na, oh nga sir, malaki nga talaga pala ang problema. And kami sir, willing kaming mag-contribute. Sabi ka agad sa akin. Nung kausap namin sila, sir, willing naman kami mag-contribute. Basta reasonable lang, kaya namin sir, para lang makatulong sa gobyerno. Isipin mo sir, para makatulong sa gobyerno, makatulong kami sa bayan. Yun ang iniisip. And then, ayun nag-sink in sa akin yun eh. Lagi ko iniisip yun, tinanin nyo itong mga tao na ito. Nagbuwis na nga ng buhay, nag-sacrifice na ng kanilang mga quality time sa pamilya, pero iniisip pa rin nila yung sa bayan. And then finally, I realized na, kung itong mga tao na to, bakit itong mga ibang political leaders na to walang ginagawa? And so during one of my talks, yung closed door meeting ko sa kanila, I said, it's about time. Kailangan ilabas na rin natin ito. It's about time. And so, nobody expected na I will be mentioning this during my speech sa Philippine National Police. Although I've been mentioning this in my other engagement with other CSOs, yung mga PICPA, yung mga auditors, yung mga accounting, Association of Accountants. Pero dito talaga naging very passionate ako rito when I started talking about this before the members of the Philippine National Police. Kaya talagang nung nag-umpisa nun, I never expected. Akala ko, kami lang eh. Wala naman, nobody. Talagang, I never expected that it will be posted in social media, Richard. Wala akong dalang social media.
Century. Ganyan talaga yan, Mayor. Yeah. That's why kailangan mo ng social media team na mas malaki pa na. I'm just kidding. You guys are doing fantastic. But that's why it's important, Mayor, you clarify the context. Because I was wondering where all of these discussions coming from. Yeah.
Yeah. Dapat malaman din ng tao na bakit nangyari to, bakit nagsalita ako ng ganito. People should be aware. And alam mo, lagi kong binabasa yung mga dating mga articles ni former NEDA Secretary Carl Chua. And doon talaga, isa yun sa mga naging during my campaign for my second term, isa yun sa mga binasa ko talaga mabuti. How can we address this big issue of national debt? Tapos at the same time, how do we address corruption, which is actually one of the main component of that leakages na binabanggit niya. Alam mo ba na I went over another article at lumalabas na by 2023 hindi ba nabanggit ko na at 13 point something percent every Filipino owes the government owes 113,000. Now, tinignan ko yung latest projection nila na by the end of 2023, our national debt would be at 14.6 trillion. And then by 2024, it will increase by as much as ilang percent yun. Eventually, it's in numbers, it's 15.8 trillion. And the trend of the way we are paying our debts, mukhang ang nababayaran lang natin is mga nandun lang sa 50 to 60%. So tumataas. So if we're looking at the figures, yung projections na yan, at 15.8 trillion by end of 2024, ibig sabihin, bawat Pilipino, looking at the projected population of 114 million by 2024, lalabas na 138,000 na ang utang ng bawat Pilipino.
Yeah, I mean, and this issue of national debt, I think is something important we can discuss. I mean, for me, because I mean, of course, debt is something serious that we have to discuss. At the same time, we have to also making sure na yung inuutang natin napupunta sa tamang investments, right? Because if it goes into the right investments, then pwede mo recuperate yan. It's worth it. I mean, Japan has a what 250% of its GDP public debt, right? Countries like
Yeah.
China, we don't know how big it could be, 300%. Although, I mean, it's different. I mean, sometimes it's more foreign debt or public debt, but I think it's also important malaman natin sa naputa. May mga nagbabayad ng buwis. Like, okay, we appreciate it, but we have to see the results. So I think the same logic also applies there. Yeah.
Yeah, kung titingnan mo, nagbabayad tayo ng buwis. Ano? Nangungutang tayo. Pero magkano dyan ang napupunta sa corruption? Ibig sabihin, nangungutang lang tayo para palakihin lang natin yung mga bulsa. Pakapalin lang natin yung mga bulsa na itong mga political leaders na ito. No, we should not. It's about time that we have to say no. It's about time. I hope people will become more aware that they need to demand good governance, to be for the political leaders to be very transparent with them, especially on financial transactions. Kailangan na talaga. It's about time.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor. So I know you have to go very shortly. You have a state of calamity and everything to deal with. Just last questioner though. Again, I know you get annoyed perhaps personally by this. I'm sure it applies to Mayor Vico, etc. People are seeing what good you're doing in Baguio, the waves you're making, and everyone is immediately saying maybe it's time for you to go to the next level. Of course, as being from Baguio, I'm saying stay there in Baguio as much as you can and as much as we need you. But in general, what do you think about this trend kung saan parang inisip ng tao na if you're a great mayor, you could be a good president, or I don't know, a good senator or vice president or whatever. I mean, what is your take on that? Where do you think is this hunger coming from?
Well, alam mo kasi ang nangyayari is ang sistema kasi natin dito sa Baguio is always right sa Pilipinas is personality based. Maski na may movement, they always go back to person. Sino ba yung mga taong nasa likod niyan? Laging ganun eh. Sino bang tao? Kulang pa. We have to change that mindset. Pero it will be very difficult for us to be doing that. So I don't blame them to be saying that. But so far as I'm concerned, what I'm doing now is not at all tied to any political agenda. When I came up with this, it has nothing to do with my ambition to join national government or, wala yun. It's about creating that legacy that we can pass on to the next generation. It's about thinking about the future of our kids, itong mga grandkids natin and grand-grandkids, kung paano patawagin yan. So, hindi ko iniisip yan. Ang sa akin lang is, I need to finish my term in the city of Baguio because I have a lot of strategic and catalytic projects that I need to deliver to the people of Baguio. I'll be retiring in Baguio and I'm very much happy to, after my term, I just, fade away, hoping that, the good governance movement, the good governance movement is, being pursued, and there's a lot of good things that is happening in this country. So yun lang ang ambition ko rito. Yun lang ang gusto kong mangyari.
Last point, Mayor. Obviously last year during the elections, I know you're beyond politics and you're post-partisan and all. I mean, I don't know if you saw it, but I was able to attend some of the rallies and events from different camps, but we saw, for instance, the whole so-called pink movement, of hundreds of thousands of people showing up, people going there. And for me, I think it was more than just about candidate X or Y. It was, I think, really just a kind of a hunger for good governance, right? That's my understanding of it. And perhaps I made a lot of enemies, just like you, by pointing out the gaps, not only with the government, but also with the opposition. My sense is, where's the mobilization? Where's the post-elections, bringing people together? Because, my point is, people come out during elections, not just because, I mean, hanggang dyan lang. There are many people who come out there because they want really the country to transform. And you're not going to get that unless you have sustained mobilization. We see that in South Korea. We see that in Taiwan, where I was based for quite some time. In short, you don't become Norway or Denmark just like that, right? It takes hundreds of years of mobilization. It's not just about voting for the right person. Election one, and the next election, hindi nanalo manok mo, you give up. I think that's a very problematic mindset we also have with a lot of our voters, and that's something that I want to change. And so I wanted to end on this note because you have an initiative coming up. is this initiative about that? That, you know, this is not just about elections. This is not just about voting for the right candidate. This is about becoming active citizens and contributing on a sustained manner, because politicos tend to respond. When people are organized, they tend to respond. It's not about Filipino politico being a special breed. We had corruption all around the world. We had horrible corruption in the US, right? I mean, you have to watch Gangs of New York, Boardwalk Empire. US was in a horrible state 100 years ago. I mean, they're not in a good state now, but yun nga yung feeling ko talaga, Mayor, na hindi na-appreciate ng maraming tao. They think it's just about going there during elections, voting for the right guy, and then just leave it to them and things should be in a better place. And then kung hindi nanalo, give up na sa Philippines, leave the Philippines, no longer love the Philippines. What's your coup de coeur? I mean, like, what is your clarion call there? Because I think there's just a desperate need for inspirational leadership, and by some convergence of events, you're seen as one of the more inspirational leaders in the country nowadays. Maybe God has placed you in that place. Can you tell me something about that? Give us some good message, Mayor.
You said it, Richard. You said it. Well, masasabi ko lang is great Rome was never built in one day. You know, one way or the other, somewhere, somehow, sometime, someone started it. Ulitin binanggit ko kanina. Big things started with small beginnings. You know, and if we are that small beginnings, then hopefully someone can sustain it. It might not happen during our lifetime, but probably the next generation. Now, knowing that we're thinking about them, it's about sustainability, fulfilling the needs of the present generation without compromising the needs of the future generation. And that is my personal mindset. And I hope that is also shared by all the other mayors and political leaders who share, and business leaders, all the leaders in the private sector, we share the same mindset. If we have that same attitude, then, you know, I believe, sabi ko nga, we can make the impossible possible. Sabi nga ni, I remember the words of President Roosevelt when he said that, you know, we need, after the Pearl Harbor bombing, sabi niya, we need to retaliate. We need to launch a counteroffensive. Sabi ng mga generals, Mr. President, we cannot. We're decimated. Sabi niya, we don't have the asset. Ano sabi ni President Roosevelt? Don't tell me it cannot be done. After 3 months, the generals came back. Sabi nila, Mr. President, we have the solution. We can make things happen. We can make things happen. It's just that we need someone to tell us that, don't tell me that cannot be done.
Thank you very much, Mayor. On that note, I mean, I can see you're also inspired by all of these good models, including, of course, FDR, although Theodore Roosevelt also had a lot to offer during his time. And I think in the same way, many people are also looking to good mayors like you to get inspiration. We need some element of personality politics, but we also need institution building movements. All of them have to go together, right? It's a teamwork in that sense. So maraming salamat, Mayor Benji Magalong. Thank you so much. I know you're so busy, so thank you for giving us that this time. And we hope to catch up with you in the coming months and years, God willing, inshallah, to continue this kind of conversations, because I think our country really needs that. And please continue to take care of yourself, stay strong, and stay safe. God bless po. Thank you very much.
Richard, can I just say something?
Please go ahead.
No. We need young leaders like you. Believe me, we need young leaders like you. You take care. Bye.
Thank you, Mayor. No pressure. Have a good day and talk to you soon. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.